In the aftermath of two devastating world wars, global leaders promised never to repeat the mistakes of the past. But today, rising tensions between superpowers are threatening to push the world closer to conflict than ever before. As the US dollar loses its grip on the global economy, countries like China, Russia, and even Saudi Arabia are rethinking their alliances. In this documentary, we'll explore how these shifting dynamics, from the rise of BRICS to the de-dollarization movement, could trigger World War III. For decades, the US dollar has been the dominant currency in global trade. But as the US government continues its aggressive economic policies, especially excessive dollar printing, its influence is waning. Expert 1, the US has been printing money at an unprecedented rate, trying to maintain its global dominance. But this inflationary practice has serious consequences for the international financial system. As the dollar becomes less stable, countries around the world are seeking alternatives. This rise in dollarization is reshaping the global economy, with BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, leading the charge. BRICS is not just a loose economic alliance, it's a movement that's challenging the US dollar's role as the global reserve currency. China and Russia, in particular, are pushing for greater use of their own currencies in international trade. Expert 2, China has been building its economic influence through the yuan, while Russia, facing sanctions from the West, has been looking to decouple its economy from the dollar entirely. Even Saudi Arabia, once deeply tied to the US dollar through the petrodollar system, is considering accepting payment for oil in currencies like the yuan, further eroding the dominance of the US dollar. For decades, Saudi Arabia and the United States have maintained a close relationship, built on oil and defense deals. But recently, Saudi Arabia has been exploring new alliances. They've been deepening ties with China and Russia, and even hinting at the possibility of trading oil in yuan instead of dollars. Expert 3. If Saudi Arabia shifts away from the petrodollar, it would send shockwaves through the global economy, threatening the very foundation of US economic power. This shift could signal a major geopolitical realignment, as oil-exporting countries consider moving away from the US dollar, further isolating the United States from the global economy. One of the most dangerous flashpoints in the world today is Taiwan. China considers Taiwan a breakaway province, and the United States has pledged to defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion. China views Taiwan as part of its territory, and any move to reunite it could ignite a military confrontation. But the US sees Taiwan as a strategic ally in the Pacific, a crucial part of its defense network against China. With both nations ramping up their military presence in the region, the risk of an accidental clash grows by the day. Meanwhile, NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe and its increasing support for Ukraine has further strained relations with Russia. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine is becoming a proxy war between NATO and Russia, draining resources and deepening the divide. NATO's continuous expansion is seen by Russia as an existential threat. The more NATO encroaches on Russia's borders, the closer we get to a larger military conflict. The risk of World War III looms large as the West and Russia remain locked in a dangerous standoff. Germany, Europe's economic powerhouse, finds itself caught between the US and Russia. The war in Ukraine has put Germany in a precarious position, dependent on Russian energy but also aligned with NATO's policies. Germany is in a bind. On one hand, it's part of the EU and NATO, but on the other, it faces economic consequences from sanctioning Russia, while also struggling with energy security. Germany's role in Europe's future is critical, as it tries to balance economic ties with both the US and Russia, an alignment that could determine the outcome of this global struggle. The world is becoming increasingly interconnected but also more divided. As countries like China, Russia, and the US jockey for power, smaller nations are being forced to take sides. The domino effect of economic instability, military escalation, and the breakdown of old alliances could trigger the spark that ignites World War III. We are seeing a return to the kind of global instability that led to both World War I and World War II, rivalries, territorial disputes, and alliances being tested. Despite the tensions, the future is not yet written. Diplomacy has always been the key to avoiding the worst. As we face these challenges, it is up to the world's leaders to choose whether we enter a new era of conflict or move toward a future of peace and cooperation. The choices we make today will determine whether we head into a new Cold War or worse, a global conflict. The countdown has begun, but there's still time to change course.